All right. Hello and good morning, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. We've got a few different regions joining this Waterfunds Network webinar today. So welcome and thank you so much for joining. I'm going to start today with a brief introduction. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Emily Simmons. I'm the Waterfunds Network Manager here at the Nature Conservancy, and we like to have these at least bi-monthly webinars, sometimes more frequent. And today's topic is on Waterfunds Toolbox and training. While we go through the presentations, I just ask that you try to keep your microphone muted, and unless there's a specific question that I'll leave to the presenters to discuss whether they want to hold. Okay, yeah, we're getting a little bit of feedback there, but I just selected everyone on mute, so hopefully your microphones will stay on mute. Okay, so I want to start with a quick announcement. For those of you that participated in the 2018 Waterfunds Network Olympics, we finally calculated all the winners, and so announcing for the first time to everyone, even though the winners themselves did receive a notification before, I'm happy to share with you that the winning, let me start with third place. So third place winners for the figure skating event is Marilla Borgo from Brazil. Congratulations. And for second place in the individual figure skating event is Andre Targa Cavassani. And for first place, it's our Maria Isabella Cruz from Mexico, and for first place, as Maria knows, she'll be sent to Stockholm, Sweden this late August for the Seaweed World Water Week in Sweden with a whole bunch of other TNC staff. Super, super exciting, and a big congratulations to our winners. And likewise for our team event, which we nicknamed the Bobsled event, we have an amazing opportunity here for third place. There was it's technically fourth place because we had a tie for second place this year, which was the first time for the team event. It was super, super close, very exciting competition. But so for third place, the award goes to the Green Blue Water Coalition from Brazil. And the teams that tied for second place, great representation from Africa, is the Addis Ababa Water Fund from Ethiopia, and support from Fred in Kenya, and then Team Cape Town from South Africa also got second place. So congratulations to both of you guys. And then finally, our first place team that'll be sent to the Caribbean this June is the Sultan Verde Runnings team from Arizona. So congratulations to everyone, such amazing contributions this time around. And there will be another small mini webinar that will be reporting out all the results, all the findings, all the contributions. So keep an eye out for that invite in your calendar if you're interested in learning more about the Waterfunds Network Olympics and everything that was done this time around.
Woohoo!
So, yes. Is that you, Corey?
Oh, that's
right.
Okay.
From Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. Thank you very much.
So fantastic. Yes, I'm so glad we had such amazing regional distribution of participants as well. Super exciting. I can't wait to put all the dots on the map to show where we had teams and entries from. Excellent. So that was the only announcement. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and get started with the presentation today on the Waterfunds Toolbox and training. I'll be handing over the presentation to Corey, who will be hosting the rest of this webinar, but he's also one of our presenters today. Corey is the Waterfunds Program Manager, a part of the Global Water team at TNC. He was also the previous Waterfunds Network Manager, so he's an excellent host to kick us off today, and has worked on a whole bunch of projects for the Global Water team, and has been a huge regional coordinator and responder to a lot of the work that goes on throughout the Nature Conservancy. And then as well as a part today, we have great representation from our regions, partly the reason why this call is so early on the West Coast is so that other folks in the regions can join, such as Fred Kihara, who's working on our water funds in Africa, specifically in Nairobi, Kenya, and doing excellent work there. Likewise, we have Sylvia Benitez, who is our freshwater manager for Latin America and helping us with a lot of the regional work and leading some excellent projects over there. And Laura McCarthy from New Mexico, and also for our North America sort of regional representative. She's doing amazing work with water funds and helping pull together a whole bunch of pieces across the U.S. And all of these individuals have been crucial partners to helping build the toolbox and all the different assets and pulling pieces together, and helping Corey as well with the training and getting all the knowledge and harnessing it all and putting it into a format that can be shared and scaled across the world. So with that, I'll pass everything over to you, Corey. Please feel free to add or make amendments to anything but otherwise the floor is yours.
That's great. Thank you, Emily. And I'll make a point of introducing Laura and Fred and Sylvia, and once we get to that part of the presentation. So as you heard, big congrats to all the winners of the Olympics, woohoo, as Fred said. And yeah, today's presentation will be coming to you from Vancouver, Santa Fe, Quito, and Addis Ababa. So this is truly a global presentation coming your way. So this is being recorded, and you'll be able to view it afterwards. We'll share this. So the focus of this is going to be on two things. One is the toolbox, which hopefully you've had a chance to poke around on. It's that first link there, waterfundstoolbox.org. Well, I encourage you to look at it and poke around on it. It'd be best if you listen to us for the next hour and a half here, or less. But obviously that's a good resource to look at and send us questions. The other is the Waterfronts training, which is on a website called conservationtraining.org, and it hosts a range of other trainings from TNC, the UN, DP, and other groups like that, UCN. So we're going to dive into both of these. But before we do begin, I'm going to speak for about 10 minutes roughly, and then we'll pause for questions about the toolbox, and then we'll get into the training, and we'll hear from each of those speakers. And there'll be questions and answers following each of their presentations. So please hold those questions, and then once we are ready, you can rather type them in the box, you can raise your hand, there should be a little icon in the side, or you can unmute yourself and just interrupt us. So with that said, the first thing we need to be clear on is, what is a water fund? For those watching this recording, those on the call, what we mean by water fund in this context that these products are built around is this longer definition that we've broken out into 4 ideas for you. One is that water funds are organizations that they design and enhance financial and governance mechanisms, and they do that in order to unite stakeholders, that both in the public, the private, civil society sector, around this common goal to contribute to water security, and they do that through nature-based solutions and sustainable watershed management. So that's our operational definition of what a water fund is. Now that model has been replicated increasingly in diverse geographies around the world. So as we know, this started in the Andean region of Latin America. They've been leaders in promoting and refining the model. It's since moved into North America, and then as you can see, Fred is actively helping a group in Addis Ababa right now in Ethiopia, and it's making progress across East Africa, South Africa, and then increasingly into Asia Pacific, and China, Indonesia, and India. And so with that in mind, so that's a lot of replication, a lot of spread of the idea, right? But that's with a lot of effort on TNC's part. And we're not moving quickly enough to meet our goals for this strategy. And so that's the problem at the moment, is that there's demand for this model, the water funds model, and guidance on how to do it, but we're beyond TNC's capacity to actually lead those projects, and it's beyond our footprint. So in order to hand off those ideas and allow others to lead, there's barriers that are limiting their ability to actually explore the model and lead water funds while maintaining quality of those projects. So barriers like, what is the process? Are there examples or templates I can use across that process? What have you guys learned while you're implementing water funds? Who can I speak to about this, even after I go through the whole training and the whole toolbox? Is there somebody I can actually go and connect with? And so our solution that we're presenting here is multifaceted. So there's three things that we're going to speak most about the latter two here, the toolbox and the training. But the first is the Waterfronts Network. So we just heard today there's the results from the Olympics, which is a global competition, right, to exchange what we know, ideas, and inspire each other. And that's the key to these other two products. They're completely built by people in this network, and people, and they will continue to be refined by people in that network. So that's the absolute engine behind both the toolbox and the training. Now the toolbox, we're going to talk about it for the next about 5 minutes or so. And of course, questions beyond this webinar are very welcome. But it's meant to be you arrive there and it's the very quick download on how you do things, what are the key examples of each step, what are the key ideas, that kind of thing. Where the training is designed by experts in adult learning. So it's distinct in that there's a guided, very guided slides that you're going through that have been crafted by people who know how adults learn. So just to make sure that distinction is clear before we move forward. The Waterfronts Network, so that first one, it's been growing since we started it about 4 years ago. And each year we conduct a survey, and there'll be another one this year, but where we ask, how often are you talking with each other? What are our skill sets? What are our biggest support needs? And over that time, we've seen that we are actually speaking to each other more. We are working together more, and that network has been growing both in size and how connected we are. And we're trying to move towards more sophisticated use of this network in terms of actually doing peer reviews for each other, mentoring, more staff exchanges, that kind of thing. So that's not the focus of today's call, but that obviously, as I said, is the engine behind these other two products. So the Waterfronts Toolbox, how was it developed? It was developed through that network. So a lot of regional and global staff expertise was provided into it through key topics over multiple months and years. And there was design workshops originally. There was a beta site that many of you will remember on nature.org, where we kind of tested a lot of the content and revised it. Through the first Olympics, there was a lot of lessons learned contributed through that and different ideas. Pro bono legal support on legal issues. There's entire sections that are question and answer throughout it, and then a range of other steps. But and there's teams that led the design in the new one with interviews with different practitioners and that kind of thing that brought us to where we are today. And so why is this actually exciting? Is because this is a milestone for us that we have now an online product that we can work on and improve as we move forward and quickly add documents, ideas, and update very quickly. And then that's exciting because it's a globally relevant approach. So across the whole project cycle, while every piece of that recipe might not be applied exactly the same in each context, most of it is relevant in each context. And so it's a series of best practices that can be adopted and help others lead. It's also based on expert experience. So this isn't written by one or two people. There is experts around each section of the toolbox, and we'll talk about structure here in a minute, but that have directly informed it. And then finally, it's also iterative. So we have secured funding for someone to sit and work and update this site as we move forward. So it's not just static in time. We're going to learn a lot as we continue to implement and as we deploy these tools and ask others to lead what is enough guidance, what is not enough, and where do we build out. So if you were to go to this toolbox, and I strongly encourage you to, waterfrontstoolbox.org, we really went after more multimedia for this version, and we're increasingly trying to lean towards that. We know people kind of, your eyes glaze over, right, when you see just those 3 pages long text, so we're increasingly trying to build out more videos of filming experts speaking about issues, webinars like this, we can throw them up on there, images and all the multimedia that makes you actually want to engage with the website. And the structure, the Waterfronts project cycle is a 5-phase cycle that starts with feasibility, working your way through to a maturity model. Now, most of the content is built around that structure. There's a section that's more around getting started on just Waterfunds 101 type of ideas. Then there's regional pages where we can talk about specific funds, and then there's a library, but most of the content is around under each one of these steps. And now, so under each of those phases, there's a step that says step 1, step 2, all that kind of thing. And under each step, there's the same structure. So you will come to a page and it should tell you the purpose, should tell you what are the key ideas of doing that step, what are the key questions, what are some examples of doing that from our global portfolio, and are there any templates or other resources that can help me do it. So we're increasingly trying to follow that structure so you know where to go immediately when you land on a page. And those are the things that we've agreed on as our group that led the toolbox would be the most useful. Another way to view the content is if, say, you were a project manager and you're wondering, you want to retain somebody, maybe it's a scientist, a financial analysis, how much work will they do across this whole project cycle? Or maybe you are one of those specific disciplines, likely you are, that you can go and explore by component. So by component, what I mean is there's 5 common things across every water fund that we found. That you have a multi-stakeholder governance mechanism, you're doing your planning based on science, there's some kind of funding mechanism, so you need to think about finance, you're implementing program activities, and then you're also doing lots of communications with stakeholders and marketing and that kind of thing. So we've broken out guidance and said which one of these tasks is most like one of these components, but then also if it's related to multiple things, you can also tag it that way, just so that people get to the guidance quickly. There's obviously a big library, so this is a big improvement that we have a searchable library. The whole site has a site-wide search in it as well, so you should be able to arrive, look for this little icon, the search magnifying glass, type in whatever you're looking for, and hopefully it should bring up a series of pages that are related to what you're looking for. And who might use this? This was designed specifically for water fund practitioners, as I said, who can lead water funds and help us improve and deploy the model. And that means a lot of people because it's a collective action platform. So there's a lot of people involved in water funds, and that could be anybody from local citizens to urban leaders to scientific and NGO communities, but primarily those who are responsible for leading an aspect of water funds is who this is targeted for that. And then in terms of contributions, we had funding provided by Cure Green Mountain to support this. A lot of materials contributed through the Latin American Water Funds Partnership, and other content from people like the U.S. Forest Service, the Natural Capital Project, Forest Trends, and the World Resources Institute. So very collaborative product, and a lot of hard work that went into this. And so the thing I'd like to end on, and that's a very quick overview of the funds, because I will also want to make sure there's time for all the wonderful presenters we have to talk about the training, which is a very related but distinct product from this. I just want to note, we want to keep building on this product. And so there are 2 main ways that you can contribute. What you know is, 1, there is an add a resource button on every single page of the toolbox in the bottom left corner. If you go to that, you can upload documents and comments and that kind of thing, lessons learned, and they will be sent to a centralized location where we can manage and upload those into the toolbox. Somebody just unmuted themselves. Please stay on mute until there's going to be a Q&A here in 1 second. And the other way to contribute is to build out what we call methods kits in here. So there's a section on the toolbox as well that says methods. And if you go to that, you can do like monitoring and evaluation programs. There's multiple tiers of how you go about doing that, fundraising strategies, governance and legal models, those kind of things. If you have one in mind, even just for your own geography that you'd like to build out, then contact me, and I will work with you to build that out and draft content. There is a governance kind of aspect that this will have to go through to make sure we agree it's a good addition, but ultimately you will have control. So before I move on to the training, I'd just like to pause. Are there any questions about the toolbox specifically and what you just heard? And then we'll talk about the training. So again, you can type them up, questions out in the chat box. You can unmute yourself, or there should be a raise your hand button.
Hi, Corey. This is Colin Heron. Can you hear me?
I can. Hey, Colin. How are you doing? Hey.
Yeah, fine. Thanks. Thanks for the presentation. That was great. I just had a question about the definition of what a water fund is. So I know in Latin America we've been using a slightly different definition, which was sort of agreed upon with the Latin American Water Funds Partnership. I actually really liked the way you presented it today, but my questions really have got a standardized, agreed upon single way of presenting what a water fund is, or are we sort of managing 2 slightly different variations of that, one in Latin America and the other globally?
That sounds like a discussion beyond this workshop. This was my understanding of what that consensus was. And so we will need to revisit that offline, unfortunately. So I think it's pretty close to this, unless it looks very different column. It's basically this paragraph and then broken out.
Yeah, it's similar but slightly different, and I think the devil's in the details. But yeah, I'll be glad to take that conversation offline as well.
Okay, just for the sake of time, more than anything else. I can see that unfolding into a long conversation. So thank you. Any other questions related to what we just saw? Oh, thank you. So there's some questions coming in privately to me. One is the Waterfront Toolbox open, available for public use, reference? Yes, it is. So there is no, and contribution, sorry, and there is no paywall, nothing like that at this time. We're looking at different fee-for-service type of structures that maybe could help us disseminate and fund the actual use of the toolbox better. So we're exploring those ideas, but at the time right now, anybody can come and use it. Absolutely. Another question, is the toolbox translated into other languages? And what about providing the training in other language? So thank you. That's a good question as well. So the toolbox, one issue with that right now is that while the content is a lot of good thinking has gone into it, we're still learning and applying, and it's being updated. So it's not quite maybe static enough to warrant a full translation of the whole toolbox, because then you change a few things and you got to redo a whole bunch of work again. So that's, there's an automatic translator that's getting better every day from the folks down in California who work on all these tech stuff. But on every single page, there are multiple languages you can select, and it should be an auto-translate that's built in there. We are exploring also building a kind of a bound in time type of thing where it's just a toolbox in a PDF type of document where we pick out just the key information, and then we would translate that as a reference, and then maybe update that every year as one option. But on the training, that is translated to Spanish and Portuguese at the moment. Those aren't publicly available yet, but we have that translated. The work's been done, and that will be, we're going to hear today about a workshop we're doing in Peru, and how we're going to learn a lot by that engagement, and then maybe do some refinements and then release that as well. So at the time, training is in English, Spanish, and Portuguese is the plan, and then the toolbox is in English with an auto-translator built in. Any other questions? And then otherwise, we should probably move on. All right. Well then, thank you, all of you, for joining and making time for this. Is the training. So let's talk about the training. And then we'll hand it over to Laura. So you'll be on deck here, Laura, in 2 minutes. So the training started about 2 years ago. We started working on actually scoping out what this should look like and the scope of it. And we've been testing it in the field since we created content, and then we'd go and hold a workshop and see and refine it from there. And so what I mean by that is two things. One is online training. So you can come, you can click through slides, there's assessments and to reinforce your learning as you go through things like what is natural infrastructure, what is the water funds project cycle, what is, how do you do a feasibility situation analysis, those kind of things. There's guidance around those terms. And then the other thing I mean is that there's in-person trainings, and these obviously cost more money. And we'll talk about what that range might be in a second. But what that process looks like is that you might come online and learn for 2 to 6 weeks prior to actually attending one of these workshops, where you take training and there's guidance on what you should be focused on, that kind of thing. And then you come to a workshop and actually reinforce those ideas by working on your local context, is the way we've been approaching this to date, is that you come and you have a few teams there that are interested in learning about their own, scoping out their own water security situations and what a water fund might do if you're in the feasibility phase, and then bringing in some of our experts to help guide them through a few days of a workshop. And then beyond that, the idea would be is you go and apply what you've learned and actually work towards whatever phase you're in with the support of a coach as you move forward, just as Fred is doing right now in Ethiopia. and contributing what he knows. And then beyond that, ideally, what we would have is that you've learned a lot by going through that process. And so contributing those learnings back to these products, the toolbox and the training, so that others can benefit from it as you move forward. So why would you do this for your own capacity? Is one, to build other local capacities, right? So the mission here is to grow water funds models and implement source water protection, not necessarily to grow TNC or our own individual organizations. This is about building capacity. So you achieve that goal. There's an engagement opportunity for local stakeholders to come and join these trainings. We found they are much more than just a training where you learn. There's a lot of important discussions that happen on the breaks, right, or even during the actual content that you are looking through, that it's a good opportunity to engage those who are most important for your own local context. You can help grow our community, right? So there's a long list of people from a lot of different geographies on the line right now who are listening to this recording, who just participated in the Olympics, so you can help grow that community. And then also, you can help improve our collective knowledge base, right, by improving these tools that I just said. So the generalized process, if you were to hold one of these, is, and I won't go into a lot of detail, is that you would go to the Water Funds Toolbox, as where this description will be, and you would learn what the Water Funds training is and what it takes to actually hold one. And this is going to be based on documents that you don't actually have access to today. They're under development. But then you would scope it. Do you need, you can take that online training self-paced. We're going to set up a virtual classroom type of structure where you could hold it online, or does this warrant a full-blown in-person component where they learn online and come and apply what they learned? From there, you would need to secure your resources, right? So who's going to fund this actual work? Who is going to be our team? Who are the experts that we're going to bring in to actually support this? And then you would need to plan for that workshop and then actually hold it and do that cycle I was describing before. So what would that cost you? If you were, it's a range, right? So there's a lot of different factors, but it would likely be a range between a minimum of $15,000 up to $60,000 for the in-person stuff. Online is obviously much cheaper, but there's still costs associated. So that's factors that affecting that cost are things like travel costs, scope, right? So the number of days, is there a field trip, who's going to come speak, number of participants, where is this being held, those kind of things. And you might reduce those costs by holding the training in a space that's organized by your organization, requiring participants to drive, that kind of thing. And we'll learn more about the in-person trainings through our speakers today, because they've all led or are about to lead a workshop themselves. So with that said, I'd like to hand it over to Laura McCarthy, who led our first ever Water Funds training and was blazed the trail by both authoring content and then delivering it in Santa Fe from May 2nd to 3rd, which we'll hear more about. So Laura, are you on mute?
I think I'm unmuted. Good morning, everyone. Is that right?
Yes, you're good to go. And,
okay.
I'll just move the slides for you, or would you like me to hand you control?
No, you go ahead. There aren't that many, and I can just tell you when I'm ready for the next one.
Sounds good.
Great. Well, so here in New Mexico, we started kind of messing around with water funds in 2009. Why don't you go to the next one already? Yeah, that one. Thank you. And we started with a proof of concept kind of small water fund in Santa Fe, New Mexico itself in 2009. In 2012, we grew our scope to a 7 million acre landscape that's shown in this slide. And we launched that in 2014, which is a long way of saying that by 2016, when we held our workshop, we were being asked a lot to share what we had learned with other people. And we were framing that with the concept of replicability, but prior to the global team taking on the challenge of the toolbox and these workshops as a part of it, we had no idea how we were going to deliver on replicability to our local, within the state of New Mexico, other communities as well as within the West, where other people were facing the same kinds of problems and threats that we were here in New Mexico and that we were trying to solve with our water fund and successfully solve it. So next one. At the time that we decided to hold the training, the feasibility online training was in development, and it seemed that there was a confluence of events of wanting to test the feasibility content in an in-person workshop setting, and at the same time, we in New Mexico with the Rio Grande Water Fund were, we kept being asked by people throughout our state to come down and share what we had learned, and we didn't have a format for that. We were being asked by people in other Western states as well, and in our case, we had two separate funders that were interested in a workshop. One is a private foundation that works in 5 Western states that wanted us to bring some people in to do some kind of a training. And the other is that we participate in a TNC-sponsored partnership with 2 big government agencies in the U.S., the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Interior, with something called the Fire Learning Network that does a lot of peer learning. And because our watershed, in our watershed, the biggest threat is fire, that seemed like kind of a natural fit. And actually in this slide, you can see in the upper left that there's it's not all green where the forest is, a lot of it is red, and that's a fire scar, actually. So let's go to the next one. The focus for us was the feasibility phase, and I think the 2 innovations that we brought to this workshop setting were first that we wanted it to be really hands-on, and second, that we wanted to bring in mentors. And so let's go to the next one. The hands-on part really sprang out of the content, the online content, because as we were working on the online training, there were exercises that individuals did by themselves and that we were essentially concocting exercises for people so that you wouldn't just do a lot of clicking, you would also do a lot of thinking. And several of these really merited having a group process. And I think I'll point to one in particular, and that is the second bullet there, the defining the geography, both your physical and your social basin, is a really complex exercise, and the kind of exercise that where it is definitely advantageous to be working in a team setting. And that photo of the map, people around the map, it was taken at our workshop, and we actually required all of the participants to the workshop to bring a map and so that they could do the exercise. And I think our feedback and evaluations told us that that was one of the most successful of our exercises. But we also had others. For example, the cost estimate part is another piece that really is challenging and can hang teams up until they work through it. And so in our workshop, we were providing that opportunity. Let's go to the next one. We actually required teams to attend our workshop, and we did that because our own learning experience was of going to workshops as one person in a team and coming back and trying to share with our team members this incredible experience that we've had at a workshop and failing, and then not failing to capture the insights and the energy, and then finding that our implementation was hindered by that. So we decided that we would use a competitive process, in part because we didn't really know who was going to be interested. And I'll be honest and say that we thought that we would have applications from New Mexico because of the communities that had and actually that continue to ask us to come and share what's going on in northern part of our state, and none of them applied. So that's one lesson learned maybe about a competitive process is while we had turned up people who were not already on our radar as potential attendees, we also failed to reach some of the audience that we wanted to reach because they didn't feel like filling out the application. So little lesson learned there. The 4 teams who did attend, though, were all really awesome, and we've had good follow-up with them since then. For some of them, this workshop was a perfect fit. For others, I think it told them that they didn't actually have the right, they didn't have the funding mechanisms. And so they've kind of gone down some different paths, but still using what they got out of our workshop. And let's go to the next one, which I think is the last one. All right, so lessons learned. One other thing I didn't mention yet is that along with the peer learning innovation, we also had mentors attend our workshop. And we felt that that was really important because as those of you who have been doing water funds for a long time know there's no one way to do a water fund. And so we wanted to bring experts into our workshop to play a mentoring role with the participants. And I think for our workshop in Santa Fe, we had 8 mentors and 16 participants. And I think we actually learned that that was maybe a little too many. It would have been better if it had been more like 6 mentors to 16 participants. But all in all, I think we found that the mentor part was one of our key lessons learned. And so to wrap that up, let me just say the lessons learned. So first lesson was that teams are a really good idea, teams of people who will implement from diverse backgrounds. 2, that hands-on exercises really help with the learning. And 3, that having mentors attend and sit down with the group is also a key element of success. And I'll just end by really thanking the Global Water Fund team for deciding that they would team up with us in Santa Fe. It was lucky that we had the funding already, and it was lucky that they had the intention of doing a workshop around feasibility. And then also the TLC, the Technical Learning Center, they are an amazing team to work with and really made our first workshop relatively painless and fun. Corey, back to you, and it looks like you got the slides back, so great.
Yeah. Great, thanks. Thank you, Laura, that's so great. And so does anybody have a question for Laura? And I want to introduce you properly after I realized as a terrible host, I have not actually introduced our speakers. So any questions, though, first for Laura? And again, you can type them in. You can unmute yourself and speak. I'd be interested to hear a bit more, Laura, on the teams that attended. Do you think they would benefit from another training, say like the design phase? We held one for feasibility, or have some of them struggled so much that that they just wouldn't be ready for that, I guess? Or would a repeat feasibility of the same training be a useful thing, or is it just a one-time type of training that you take?
Yeah, interesting. I think, okay, on the feasibility, I think there are other communities that would really benefit from feasibility. And so I could see actually doing the workshop again. And now having the design material already prepared, I think that of the four teams that attended, I can see that 3 of them would definitely be interested in the design curriculum. And I've shared the online materials with them, and so that, because now that it's ready, they could take it, but I have not followed up to see if they have actually done that. And the teams themselves were cross-sectoral, so we didn't want all TNC participants, and we didn't want all people from one agency. So that was one of our evaluation criteria, was that they have a team of 4 people, all of whom would play a key role in the implementation.
Great, thank you, and that's a great answer. We have time for a few more questions here. They're rolling in on the chat. So one was, how was the workshop funded, and did the participating teams contribute?
So we already had our funding in hand, and so we had about $30,000 budget from the government agency, through the U.S. Fire Learning Network, and then from a private foundation. And so we did, we used that money. I think we used some of it to actually hire somebody to handle logistics, because our staff were beyond capacity to handle the logistics. And then we did provide travel stipends, especially we had people that were driving a full day and needed reimbursement for mileage. And then we also bought some airplane tickets and covered some hotels. So we had a pretty generous budget for this.
Great. And then we'll do one more, and then we'll switch over to Fred. And then there's a discussion period, if we have time, everybody, at the end, that we'll come back to these questions. And if we don't have time, then we'll post these on the Water Funds Network workplace site, and ask our presenters to kindly answer those there. So just one more question here then is, and I think you answered a bit of this, Laura, is what kind of participants were on the teams, and were they from different sectors, nonprofit, industry, utilities, and government?
Yeah, so they definitely were from different sectors, and typically it would be one person from a utility, 1 or 2 people from NGOs, and if there were 2 NGOs, then they were from different NGOs with different roles in their geography. And then typically there was one from a government agency that was not a utility, but that was involved in had some connection to the threat to water security, either regulatory or management.
Got it. Okay, well, thank you so much, Laura. That's great. And so we're going to hold the rest of your questions until the end, and I hope to come back to them. Just to introduce Laura from retrospectively, so Laura McCarthy, she's the New Mexico Associate State Director with the Nature Conservancy in the New Mexico chapter. She started with us in 2013, as we heard, and her conservation focuses around southern shortgrass prairie, Gila and San Juan rivers, and the middle Rio Grande, and forested watersheds such as the Jaimes Mountains, and working around climate change and drought stress as key factors. And then you can read the rest of her full biography in the invite. So thank you, Laura. That was so great. And we'll come back to those questions. And next up, I'd like to introduce Mr. Fred Kihara, who is the Africa Water Funds Advisor with the Nature Conservancy based out of Nairobi. And he joined the TNC in 2012 to steer the first ever water fund in Africa, which is the Upper Tana Nairobi Water Fund. and to support all the great work that's happening in Eastern Africa. He has worked for 17 years in natural resources conservation and donor grants management, and his past experiences have been really helpful with moving that fund forward, and he does a million things. And so we're just, thanks, Fred, for making time. I know it's late over in Ethiopia, so I'll hand it over to you, and unless you prefer, I'll move slides as we go. Just tell me when.
Thank you very much, Corey. Are you getting me well?
Yes, loud and clear.
Thank you. So I'll take the next few moments to explain a little bit about what we do here and also the training we had here in November, and I'll be happy to field some questions at the end. If you allow me, just because it's an extremely exciting moment for those of us not just in Africa to have scooped 2 awards, but also the young and nascent Addis Ababa Waterford to be a silver medalist. I want to thank the judges. I also want to thank the colleagues who are here who worked very hard and in this call, led by Mr. Zereke Tesfaye, who actually is working partially for TNC in this. Moving on to that, I also want to acknowledge that one of our greatest supporters for Africa Waterfalls now is some mining companies in Australia, and I've just noticed that somebody's Charles is on this call, and I want to thank him because it must be past midnight in Australia, and he's still up to make sure that he's part and parcel of our presentation. He's still a part of our Addis Ababa team. So kudos to Charles and all those who are staying up in the late afternoon or late in the evening to be with us. So, colleagues, thank you very much, Corey, for the introduction. I have nothing to add as regards myself, except to let people know that it's been 5 years of establishing Nairobi Waterford. We're on the 6th year. And just a little bit to say about it, the main challenges that Nairobi was faced is Nairobi Waterford gets 95% of its water from this watershed called the Tana to the north. And this is a watershed that basically drains the 2 important forests and parks, and then flows through hundreds of thousands of smallholder farmers who are all earning a living out of very steep sloping lands. The realities are that then all these floods, when it rains, there's a lot of runoff, which is good for the river, but carries a lot of soil that becomes sediments, and that becomes a huge challenge to treat the water for the city of Nairobi. So sediments were a big challenge. And then for our kind of weather, we have 2 rainy seasons, and in between them is a long spell of drought, a dry season, again with no rains and no inflows. So the rivers narrow down to become small streams and a trickle. That's a challenge to feed the city with 95% of its water needs. So those were some of the challenges that we needed to do to address as a Waterford when we started in 2012. The country of Kenya gets half of its electricity from the Tana through hydropower. Again, that's a major challenge that we needed to address to make sure that these rivers can flow and get some water to keep going. So thanks very much for sharing the vision of Waterford, is to make sure that we have a very well conserved Upper Tana watershed that provides quantities and quality of water that needed for the city of Nairobi and generating power for the country. It also needed to support livelihoods for hundreds of thousands of people who live out in the watershed. Actually, there are 5 million people in the watershed and 4 million people in the so cumulative 9 million people depend with the Tana on a way or another. So when we started in 2012, it was me and a few of my colleagues, and we did lots of flying out to go and learn some lessons to know how waterfalls have been developed in Latin America and elsewhere. And we used those cues to establish the Tana, the Upper Tana Nairobi Waterford. And then 3 years later, we had the same scenario for Cape Town. I think other than flying guys from Cape Town, we shuttled in capacity to Cape Town to try and support the team there on the ground to get things done. And that's a challenge, to have to fly people out or to bring people in to provide capacity. So the main purpose why we needed the training is a session where we could get many stakeholders from many cities that are actually dependent on watersheds like ours to learn about how they could figure out how to establish a waterfalls on their own. how to carry out feasibility study, on how to get stakeholders together to come and make decisions as regards a suitability of a water fund. So if we could go on to the next slide. Yeah, so we then convened this the training in November here in Kenya, and we sent the word out to many cities that suffer like us, the city of Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, the city of Kigali in the country of Luanda. Addis Ababa in Ethiopia was for the first time get to know what's happening, and they didn't look at water first as a possible way of addressing their challenges. I'll mention the cities at the end, but in total we sent the word out to many cities, and we had 10 teams apply, just like Laura talked about the methodology there. They applied in different ways. We then required each one of them to take the online course, which is a great resource, but was a bit tough that time to get allowed because we did not have so many people who could provide some technical support quickly as needed, except the guys in conservation training who actually tried to help a lot. People are getting frustrated by very spotty internet connections where they are, but the good thing is that we made it compulsory for everybody to complete the course, and people managed to do that just under the wire. I think there's one person who did it on the plane on his way to Nairobi, otherwise he would have missed out. And then these teams came together. They kind of were able to articulate the kind of challenges they are facing and what they need to do for their cities. So it was easy then for the coaches to understand our teams and understand our challenges quickly, because it's the only way people are going to benefit from the training and then the coaching that was done. So that means, first of all, at this time, in terms of who delivered, actually recognized that conservation training team does a great job, and particularly for people like in Africa who had immediate needs. Lots of things weren't working. What do I do? I logged yesterday, I forgot my password. It's only 24 hours later, but I need to continue my training from module 1 to module 3 or 2. So all this support came, and we also got that lots of support, and probably that helped because our team members really valued the mentorship, and many of them have remained friends with their mentors ever since that time. They've retained the linkage, and there's always some questions coming out of that. Louise is very busy with the ones she mentored, and lots of people in Latin America as well. So that's something we saw. But the reason we feel this is important is not just that people got certificates for this training that they cherish, but people have also set the bar high. They want to achieve something really unique that has not been achieved before in an area with so many needs. I put a certificate there of rainforest and certification for our coffee farmers. And I think some of the people who are able to visit, go to the field, met these farmers who are also trying to look for a global standard they could comply to, or just like we're doing something good, how can we tell that is good enough? And we've seen that happen not just with the farmers but also with our stakeholders. Corey, let's go to the next one. So it was a great session. I think we had an overwhelming application. Finally, we ended up with about 50 people in the room, and about 40 of them who are learning for the first time how WaterFast are established and how they could be part of the solution and what skills they needed and what they needed to do. So there was lots of interaction. I think there was plenty of enthusiasm. I'll not go to that, but what I really liked is the fact that they really took time with the mentors, and you guys, the mentors, were great. We were able to take the training out of the city, and looking back, I think I'll do that again. We took it to a rural town right in the middle of the watershed. We were able to do both the trainings, but also take a Sandona outing to go and see something within the watershed, because that helped visitors understand what we do and understand our circumstance and the kind of things that we try to change to make impact. We also spent a third day on a full-day field trip out in the watershed, talking to smallholder farmers, seeing the before and after. How was it before? What have you done? What are the results? And I think lots of people who came for this trip did not just enjoy the opportunities to plant trees in the Tana, but they also got plenty of opportunities to interact with the farmers and really understand our context and contribute their knowledge to it. So we did totally appreciate. Corey, let's go to the next one. And we also were able to bring in what I call very important stakeholders from across Africa. We had teams put together by WWF in Morocco coming to learn. We have people from GIZ. We have senior people from government in Botswana, in South Africa, working for municipalities, coming to learn with us because they believed this is the way to go. With people from companies. It's the first time we had the Pepsi it said that their marketing director for a country marketing director to come and learn because they need to think about their water security in Ethiopia. And you guys also were great. I mean, we had everybody come with us, and we don't take it for granted that we got quite lots of TNC high-level stakeholders. I want to single out Peter Huira, who is our executive vice president in London, coming out to tell us about innovative financing that Waterfalls could be looking at. And all of you brought excellent lessons that our people learned. And we had teams, just to mention them there from that side at the bottom, Cebu River in Morocco. As I go through this, there's one thing I want to be very proud about. All of them are doing something after the training, which is great. They went home to think about what they're going to do, and they are somewhere within feasibility or design or thinking something serious about what they're going to do for their watersheds. So Cebu in Morocco, this is a great river. They already got significant amounts of financing for their work, and they somewhere heading towards design for that. Port Elizabeth in South Africa, again, it's getting to implementation right now. Okavango Delta in Botswana, with several countries there, Agora, and Namibia, and all of them coming together to do some work there. Again, they moved this forward in a big way. They had a great workshop right now to plan the way forward. So is Mombasa. Kigali is working with one of their donors to look at significant amount of funding and also to look at green climate funds to support there. Durban, Dar es Salaam, the same. Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, we had their mention earlier today, and I can't say that in Rauda, they're going places, and they welcome TNC to come and work there in Ethiopia with the government as well. Cape Town and Nairobi are doing very well. So this team represents people who enthusiastic, wanted to learn, who got an opportunity of a lifetime. Let's move on to the next one. Got it. So, as I get to conclude, I just want to give you a quick synopsis about how did we afford it. How did we get to put in the budgets that were needed? And to be honest, we almost started without a budget. TNC has a unanimous donor who's funded quite some significant budget for the water funds, global water funds, and also in the regions, and had donated some partial budget for this. But programs all across the globe donated staff time to make this happen. Programs also catered for partial travel costs for their staff, and particularly for mentors here. We have a on-the-ground project by GEF's IFAD. That project is being implemented, and because of that, they catered for our venue costs. That made it easy for anybody who came to make sure that they were comfortable, they got a place, and they were able to move around and see some of the project sites. The Coca-Cola Foundation, which is a long-time partner, a founding partner of Nairobi Water Fund, also came in and provided lots of stay costs and hosting costs there. So in total, we were able to afford this comfortably. I don't think we had stress. But it's again because we were able to mobilize partners who actually know the value of the training. If pitched well, I think our partners and donors are willing to support this training, and there's huge demand. Beyond those 10, we have another set of probably 8, 9, 10 that now have come up wanting this training. Let me mention here that some of those, when we were doing the Olympic, and Addis Ababa was mobilizing people to take the online course, we had an overwhelming response. We had 20 people who've already gone through this training. Key stakeholders from universities, from other organizations who want to participate in this, and they took the training because they believe in it and because they believe in getting those cues. So we do think that learners also are willing to participate and chime in with some of the cost share. So probably we may go on to probably the last slide. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so that's it. So I just wanted to say, in summary, that learners would also be willing to cost share, and other partner programs would be happy to chime in something. So let's not shy away from doing these courses. I think we should offer the people who are enrolling a chance to learn. We should also offer a follow-on training on for design for those who are already getting to that stage towards the end of this year. So I'll probably stop there. I just wanted to say that it's been great, and again, all this is because we've run from other cities and other watersheds over the last 6 years. So we totally appreciate, and we are happy to give back anything we can give. Let me stop there and see if anybody has questions for us.
That's so great. Thank you, Fred. It's really engaging, and what a journey you guys have been on as you took us through there since you started the Nairobi waterfront. So just the first question that's rolled in here is, so there were 10 teams that you showed us, right, at this workshop, and then there were mentors per each team. So what is the profile of those mentors? How are they selected? And are there any terms of reference? I suppose that probably refers to in terms of selecting mentors. And I was involved in that too, so I can also try to answer, Fred.
Okay. Thank you very much. Who is a mentor in this particular journey when we're training people about like feasibility study or design stage of developing a waterfront? I think a good mentor is somebody who has actually done it. Somebody with the skills and particularly the practical skills, they've done it. So because this is what our trainees wanted to hear. They wanted to know, how did you do it? How did you approach corporates? How did you work with get corporates to work with governments and trust them? And then how did you do? How did you go to scale? How did you do a business case? So I would say in terms of mentor, generally as a rule of the thumb, people who've done it are good. So we sent out actually a word requested for many people, and also we targeted others. Would you have time to be a mentor for our training? And out of that, we had a significant enrollment. Working again together with Corey, who was helping us with the training, we looked at gaps, and we looked at some of the gaps we had were language. We had some significant francophone interest, and we did not have many mentors who are francophones, French speakers. So again, that we will look and make sure we have somebody who can work with them in French. We looked at unique circumstances also, and we look, do we have a mentor who can sit with each of the team, and wherever we lacked, we fill that in. So that's the way I would say in terms of how we selected mentors. They are largely people who accepted at least to afford for us also in response. And we figured out how they travel to Nairobi and back together. So some of them got paid for by their program. Some of them we had to raise some money for them. But Colin, do you want to say a little bit more about how the targeting a bit in the initially? Because when we sent out this word out, I think we used the waterfront network to ask if anybody would be a mentor. But did we? Oh, sorry. We also had. Now that I can see Floylan in the photograph, we also needed to have somebody also in legal who also comes out to also brings diversity in skills. Do you want to say a little bit more on it?
Yeah, I think, and it's a good, important question, Colin. Question was from Colin Heron. Is who are we, I guess, elevating as a mentor, and how are those people selected? So all the great things that Fred just said. Obviously, there's very specific needs. If it's not language, you're experienced, you've done this before, you've got some credibility. But then also thematic needs, as Fred just said. We pull up slides, right, and talk about different aspects of governance and legal structures. So it's important that we had Forlin then. We were also mentioned we were lucky to have Peter Wheeler come down and talk about finance alongside our own experts like Alejandro Cavache, who seems to be popping up in every one of these photos, as you see, because he's everywhere. And so that's hopefully that's satisfactory for now. But there is no term of reference, no, not yet, around how those people are selected. And so there's one more question here. We'll move on, and Colin, feel free, obviously, to follow up on that if that's not satisfactory. But so the question is, Fred, and Laura as well here, is could you tell us how the follow-up is being handled? And maybe I'll just put that to you, Fred, first.
Okay. Thank you very much. Once again, you may know, all of you may know that the Nature Conservancy has a program in Africa that's probably the youngest. We're soon going to be 10 years since it was opened. And to be honest, other than Cape Town that we started 3 years ago is only in a lobby that we had established a good base for waterfalls and probably started thinking about capacity. Cape Town, we've had Luis, and we're trying to recruit now to grow the team, but she's probably working their own. So we invited people who had expressed some interest in some way or another, or they had partners who had expressed that they do. And now they got the training and they went back home. And we've kept some loose communication network or system that goes on between us and them just to check how they're doing. TNC has graciously accepted to modify my terms of reference to allow me some 50% of my time to support these teams. So I'm providing support to many of these teams that are trying to do something. So I'll spend some bit of time with the 2 potential waterfalls in Tanzania, in Dar es Salaam and the city of Taga. I'm spending some time with Ethiopia on Addis Ababa and probably another potential city here. I'll spend some time with Kigali. Me and Luis will team up and support some team in Mozambique that wants to do something. Luis is already spending time with Port Elizabeth. So we're trying to divide ourselves, given that we're very in capacity right now, to make sure that we keep them motivated and we can provide fast, hard, into answers for what they need.
That's great. And Laura, do you have a concise way of answering that as well?
Corey, I didn't actually hear the question very clearly.
Yeah, it's just, could you tell us, just like Fred was describing how they've allocated some of his time to support these teams. So there was 4 teams that came to the Western Waterfronts workshop. How are you following up with them? Like, what is there a time?
Okay, got it.
3 months?
So we took a much less intense way of responding. And in part, that's because we're a business unit that really doesn't have the responsibility of replication. And so we, to provide accountability to our funders, we had check-ins with each team at 3 months and 6 months, and we did that by email. And at the 6-month time, we asked them if they wanted some consultation time with our team, and 1 of the 4 said yes, and we did that. But it's been a pretty light load on us. And also, all 4 of the teams that attended, only 1 of them had a TNC staff person. So the others were all partner.
Mm-hmm. Glad. Great. Okay. Well, we need to keep moving. So those are good answers. Fred, any closing thought you want to share, or are we ready for Sylvia?
Nice to thank all of you and say it's been great. And I didn't probably mention that because we're seeing lots of change in the recent few years, and I want to appreciate the fact that local teams like us are getting linked to global teams. And we're getting to be part and parcel of the global when you're doing something, and we're also getting lots of support from global, which was not always there. So I think that's good, and that's why delivering this kind of a training becomes easy. It would have been impossible before.
I think that's a really great point. Thanks, Fred. As you'll see for each of these cases we're going through, this is a really one conservancy, right? Like a very team approach to all of these. There are people involved from the region, from global teams, from locally, and it wouldn't happen, Fred's right, without all those pieces connecting to each other. So pretty inspirational from that perspective. So, but moving on to our final example, and this is a workshop that has not happened yet. We are actively working to prepare for this and deliver it at the end of this month, which we'll hear more on. But this case will be presented by Sylvia, who many of you know. She's been with TNC since 2001, coming up to 20 years almost. That's very exciting. And she's been involved in a range of things from conservation planning and ecosystem services. And she's been directly involved in the creation of numerous water funds, so she's knows a lot about the evolution of how we got to where we are, and she currently manages the technical work that we do regionally with the Latin America Water Funds Partnership and a range of actions on water security. So Sylvia, can you check if your microphone is working? That's the first.
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me, Corey?
Yes, absolutely. So please.
Okay. So hello everybody, and thank you for the invitation. I'm glad to join the network for this presentation. Really, as Corey mentioned, I'm going to be talking about a workshop that we're going to be holding very soon. And I will say, well, in Latin America, we have held several training workshops, but not any as the one that is going to be held this month, and not linked with the WFN's Toolbox and the WFN training platform, because this is new. So before, what we have done in Latin America is we have been doing our WFN summits, which we already have held 3, and next year in April, we're going to have our 4th WFN summit, which has also been a great space for exchange and training, but it has not been as structured as the one that we will be holding this month. Corey, can you go next? So in close collaboration with the and support from the Global Freshwater Team, we are organizing the WFN's workshop in Lima, Peru. It's almost a week long. It's going to start Monday 28th at the evening, and it will be completed by Friday at noon. We are really excited about this workshop because there are some important things that will be happening in this workshop. And maybe the first interesting thing that I want to mention is that Latin America WFN's partnership, as several of you know, in Latin America since 2000, we have been working with Inter-American Development Bank, with FEMSA Foundation, with the GEF, promoting the creation and strengthening of water funds in all the region, in all Latin America. And since last year, when we completed our first phase of the Latin America Water Funds Partnership, an evaluation was done of the water funds, and we decided, the partner decided that it was time to review the methodology for water funds design. And we started a process that we now call the desired state methodology, which is really a reviewed methodology from what we had before. You know, before several years ago, Alejandro and others, Aurelio, myself, we developed a guide for water funds, but it was kind of, you know, that was done several years ago. So it needed updated. There are several things that we have learned. And also, in Latin America, and the partnership has identified the importance of putting our water funds work in the water security context. So one of the important things that we have on our new, what we call on this new revised methodology, desired state, is that we are putting all our work in context of water security. And the first step is really to have a very clear identification of what the water security problems are in a certain region. And with this, I mean, we're still keeping nature investments as our main focus of the water fund, but also we're identifying opportunities where the water fund can engage or promote and engage other stakeholders that can help solve other issues around water security, not only the things that are related with nature. So it's a new methodology, there's the desired state, and we have been working closely with the global freshwater team, and especially with Corey and all the team that is building the training in incorporating these new concepts and new ideas of the desired state framework into the training. So the training that we're going to have in Lima is going to be, we're going to cover feasibility, but it's going to be focused on design really. And we want to give a specific focus to the strategic plan part. So we are going to be having several of the team of the Latin America Water Funds team supporting with the training. Several of this team have a lot of experience in water funds, but also have already been using this new desired state framework. So we're going to have people like Colin Aron, who's in this call, helping us as a coach, and Hilda and Alejandro. Some are similar faces that you already have seen. But also, like, you know, these people that have been very, very engaged with building this desired state framework. So we are going to be testing this, and it's going to be really our first effort in Latin America, in which we're going to be doing like a formal training in this desired state as well. So in a way, we're also testing this training. You know, we have all the experience from Global with all the platform and the online platform, plus our experienced coaches. We're going to be lucky to have also some coaches like Tim Kruger joining us, talking about return on investments and this type of thing. So the training is going to be held in Spanish. So this is a little bit of a, you know, of a limitation. So, but anyway, if anybody on this call wants to join and is not participating on this workshop, please let me know. We still have some spaces to participate, but we're going to have representatives from all of our conservation programs, Brazil, MENCA, NASCA, and Southern Andes. We're going to have participants from the global program supporting Central Science, and of course from the regional team. We already have a very interesting list of water funds participating, and something that I want to mention here is that we are going to have some of the water funds that are going to be starting with the accelerator model participating in this workshop. So we're going to have staff involved with Mendoza and Bucaramanga and the Mexico team that we are going to be involved with, like with Zacatecas, and we're going to have partners from San Salvador. So we're also going to have a good mix of representation, geographic representation, but also a good mix from TNC people and partners. And some water funds, like you can see there, like Pasto, which is a water fund that TNC is not directly supporting, but they are really interested in using our tools. So they are paying for them, you know, for their participation, and are really, really excited of learning more about the tools that TNC can offer. So this is going to be also, we are testing tools, we're testing the training, and we are hoping also to have good feedback from all the participants. We are following a lot what has done on the previous workshops in Africa and in New Mexico. So thank you for for the previous workshops who have already helped us build some experience. So we're going to have things like coaches. We are the process of identification of coaches really in this case is that people, TNC people who we know or we have a good idea that will be helping these water funds move from feasibility to design or during the design. We're identifying these people as coaches. So they will not only be helping the water funds during the workshop, but also they will be doing follow-up and keep working with these teams. We are going to have around, we are still confirming, especially something interesting as we are holding this workshop in Peru. We're going to have very good presence of our of Peruvian partners. Of course, we're going to have Aquafondo, which is you know, the water fund in Lima, Peru. But we're going to have people from SUNAS, who's the water regulator in Peru. And an interesting thing is that in Peru, there's legislation already established for putting money into nature infrastructure. So one thing that we want to move in Peru is to take advantage of the policy that already exists to start building different water funds all across the country. So we're going to have also very good representation of different places in Peru and of SUNAS to help pushing this idea of moving, of getting us in scale. You know, as Corey mentioned, we're not going to be able to support a lot of effort, and you know, we cannot be everywhere, but we want to have partners being trained and working everywhere. So that's also something very interesting about this workshop. In terms of the funding, we have we have very good support from our ART funding, which is you know, TNC funder, which is an important part of this workshop, but we are also having funding from the Latin America Water Funds Partnership, especially from an IDP grant that we have, that currently have. So we are putting together resources that TNC has with Latin America Water Funds Partnership to make this workshop happen. So I think that we're really looking forward to this. I really want to thank you, Corey, and all the team for all the support. Corey is really, you're helping a lot for this workshop, and also in advance all the speakers and mentors that are going to be participating in this workshop and that are on this call. Thank you in advance. We're really looking forward for this workshop. This is a very important activity for us. And also, after this workshop, we can evaluate how we're going to be following up on this. And also, I think this is a good learning for us. Also in Latin America, an activity and one thing that we want to do and launch in our next Water Summit is Latin America Water Funds Network, which really we have not created yet. But we want to have, you know, all TNC and especially all partners and water funds really working in a network. So this is kind of a first step to get several partners together and then start thinking how this water fund network will look like. We have funding from the Latin America Water Funds Partnership to create this network, especially funding from ICI, you know, International Climate Initiative from the Germans. That is going to be, we have funding for creating this network. So also this workshop, I think, is going to give us good insights of the type of things that people in the network would like to see. And as I mentioned, in April, in our next Water Fund Summit, we'll be able to launch the Latin America Water Funds Network, promoted by the Latin America Water Funds Partnership. So I think we're, that's it. I think that we're getting almost to the end of the call. So any question, and thank you very much anyway for everybody that has joined in this effort.
That's really great. Thank you, Sylvia, and looking forward to the whole entire week at the end of this month as you described. So some questions, please type in your questions or unmute yourself. Now is the time. First question here, Sylvia, is how will the Latin American region network be different from this water fund?
So right now, this is a network really, you know, basically a TNC team. The water funds, the network that we're aiming is where we want to have water funds participating on the network. That is the main target really. So besides TNC team, really what we want to have is, you know, we have a lot of water funds in Latin America. We have like 24 already created and a lot on the pipeline. So we want that people, which goes beyond TNC, starting to work together, to establish a network, to share practices. We want to have eventually, you know, really like the directors of the water fund being leaders within this network. So this goes really outside TNC, and so it's going to be, it's new. So we haven't yet been able to do that, but that I will say is the main difference. It's really about, not so much about TNC, it's really about getting all water funds in Latin America talking to each other, getting to know each other, and sharing experiences using the network.
Great. so we have time for maybe one more here, and we're almost at time. So this question is from Donna, and
Yeah.
so I commend you on the training, but then also.
Yeah. So Donna, I know that. Remember, you're invited. I think that because of the Spanish, you were not able to send somebody. But definitely because this is IDP, the network, the Latin America network is going to include Caribbean, both Dominican Republic and Jamaica. So the network definitely is going to be including Caribbean as well. And IDB, as you know, Donna, is really interested in supporting Jamaica and is already supporting Jamaica. So really the Latin America Water Funds Partnership is already supporting the Caribbean, both in Dominican Republic and Jamaica. So you're included. And Donna, yes, we can have definitely a coach that will be available for the, I mean, Dominican Republic, we're already working very closely, but also for Jamaica. And we can talk more about that.
Great. Okay, well, thank you, Sylvia, so much for setting aside time to walk us through your aspirations for this training and all that's ahead of us. So, but just as we close out, I just want to also recognize there's a lot of effort that's gone in over the past year in Asia Pacific to really use trainings and engagements as a way of getting the water fund model out there. And so the first was in Indonesia, which on the left there you have Rati, and then you have Alejandro popping up again. This is where's Alejandro, where's Waldo type of situation. And the goal there was to really work on a specific fund and bring the partners together to go through the feasibility phase and design phase. And then just on the right is our China team. We held a recent training as well in March, which was focused on kind of a Water Funds 101, water nature-based solutions, and really big workshop as well, and a lot of effort and a lot of success out of that. And so we didn't talk about those today, but I strongly encourage you, if you are interested, reach out to them. They all love to talk to you. On the left photo there, you have Xiaorui, and then you have Haizhang, Stan, Xiaorui again, Danine, and then Daniel, who also seems to pop up at all these trainings. So with that said, thank you all for participating. We are at the hour. Congratulations to all on the success to date, and a big thank you to Laura, Fred, and Sylvia, and have yourselves a wonderful day. We will share the recording and the PowerPoints from this as soon as we can. So thanks so much. Have a good day.
Excellent. Thank you, Corey, and thanks, everyone. Bye, guys.
Bye.